Hello everyone, watch this review here with a look at Madame Masque from Hasbro's rebooted Marvel Legends line, Wave 2. I am trying something a little different this time around because I moved my lighting system to the other side. So I'm going to see how that works out. That's neither here nor there. As previously mentioned with the Wrecking Crew review, these characters, or the packaging for these sort of double packs, doesn't actually include character-specific information such as the name of the character that you're buying. Instead, they're just kind of co-branded. They're given equal billing on the top of the package here, so forth. The only way that you know which one's kind of standard, which one's variant, is the fact that the standard one is shown on the back of the package. Now, again, sort of the downside of this format is that you don't really know a lot about the character. Well, specifically if you don't know anything about the character beforehand, packaging is really not going to help you out. And these are two sort of more obscure characters, although Madame Masque did appear on Iron Man the Armored Adventurer, though probably a greatly revised character. But yeah, hold on a second, I'll get this out pack. Madame Masque comes with the torso of Arnim. Now, Madame Hydra comes with a different torso in that the little inner piece here is of the Red Skull's face. The rest of the design is basically the same. Some people asked why couldn't they just make them interchangeable. I have to say it's a kind of good question. It just seems like a pretty simple fix. Nice amount of detail. It is kind of weird though, because for a change we are getting the sort of lower torso as well as the upper as one piece. Usually they break it up just to sort of, I guess, sell more figures. Over here we have the sniper rifle. It's got a little bit of detailing, not a whole lot. And finally we have her golden gun, which would make even Scaramanga envious. Now, given the hard economy, I don't imagine that assassins can charge $1 million per kill, but Legend says that this golden gun does instant kill in multiplayer, so yeah. And she also comes with one of those little story things, this time for Baron Strucker, but it's really not much of a story. Basically just talks about who Strucker is and just mentions, oh, Arnim works for him. Not a very compelling character history. Now, this is the first time that I've bought, well, one of the more recent female molds. I think that the most recent female mold that I picked up prior to this was possibly like Domino from the 2-pack, so it's kind of a different experience or so forth. Now, while I think that the figure looks pretty decent, there are some issues with articulation and just kind of minor gripes. First off, although some figures in the second wave do have ankle rockers, she does not. She just has the sort of standard ones that rotate, go up, down. But my bigger issue is just that rather than doing a ball joint or lined ball joint, they did something that's kind of like those lined ball joints, except for it's like this little thing with a cut. It looks a lot nicer than having a ball joint there, but at the same time, it's just a pain in the ass to try to work with. I mean, you kind of get the thing to go out in one direction, but then when you have to turn it, it's just really hard to get the joint to go the direction you want. And I constantly worry that the piece might separate. But I mean, you can still get the same forward, side motion, all that. It's just a little bit more aggravating, a little bit more, I guess, risky. Now, in terms of scale, let's bring in first appearance Spider-Man. And she is actually almost a little bit taller than him. Just make sure about that. Yeah, she's definitely taller than him. Which is kind of weird because you always assume female characters will be smaller, and I think this is a sort of standard mold, so that might be just a sort of general issue. Now, I'm kind of curious if this is the same mold they also used for the Hope Summers, which I know that they used this sort of taller mold for her as well, so kind of hope it's not the case. As for the figure itself, just jumping beyond the sort of general sculpting and stuff, she does have those ugly blue highlights that I hate, that they always use to sort of, I guess, liven up the white outfits. Really wish they'd go without. Beyond that, she has her characteristic mask. Supposedly the face was somewhat scarred, and that's why she wears the mask. Kind of like a Von Doom thing. Now, I don't know much about the character, but in Iron Man The Armored Adventures, or whatever, she was originally portrayed as like a love interest for the young Tony Stark, and she was wearing the mask and stuff to sort of protect him. It shielded her identity and stuff, and I don't know, there's a whole bunch of subplots to go around there. And technically it's spoilers, but they reveal it in basically the first appearance of the character, so not a huge spoiler. But yeah, other than just those little paint details that I mentioned, and it's kind of weird where it looks like the paint is scraped here. I almost wonder if they apply like a film on top of the generic thing rather than just spray paint on the blue, which is kind of I guess, an interesting thing to sort of query, request, and so forth. Now, you will notice that they have seams in the gloves here, which I think is kind of a nice touch, just because gloves typically would have seams. It adds a little bit of logical detail. You notice little folds around the edges there. Also pretty cool. I do like the head sculpt here. It's a very attractive face, and Hasbro and a lot of the Western toy companies haven't traditionally been the best at capturing, I guess, female faces. You'll notice it's got like little bolts and stuff at the top of the mask. And the hair sculpting is pretty cool. Other than that, since it basically uses a more sort of standard sculpt, not a huge amount to say about it. Because, I'll review other figures, and then sooner or later I'll also be commenting on that as well. But she does have a belt that moves. Like some of the previous Hasbro stuff, she doesn't have a bicep, I guess, rotation, which I've always been kind of mixed on because the ball-jointed shoulders in female figures can be kind of ugly. She also has no waist joint, instead it's just all this upper torso joint. Again, adds a little bit to the style of the figure, but it's just not that functional. You don't get much forward back on it, because, she doesn't have an ab crunch. A quick run through of articulation. You have a point of rotation here at the forearm. I am a little disappointed that she doesn't have wrist rotation or anything close to that, but, I guess it's not too bad. The bigger issue is she has a ball and socket here at the elbow. While it looks better than a double pin, it just sort of impedes what you can actually do with it, which is an issue. To do for the shoulders, it does look nicer to have a joint like this, but at the same time, can't do as much with it. Head barely does anything because of the hair. Full rotation on the torso here. Again, really no forward back. It's kind of absent. Already covered the legs, but, it's just kind of an annoying joint, and I always worry about possibly damaging the figure. A double pin here at the knees, which is kind of standard for the line at this point. And down at the ankle we have a rotation up down. Unfortunately no pivot, and no sort of rotation at the calf or whatnot. All in all, I guess she's a pretty decent looking figure. Not that much of a fan of how the bust is sculpted there. Would have preferred something a little bit more shapely, personal preference. They do have the information here on the inner thigh. At least they aren't doing it on the butt anymore. That was kind of weird. And there is a minute amount of detail here in the boot, which is really where they should toss that sort of information if they aren't going to do full detailing. All in all, kind of a decent representation of a moderately obscure character. Do somewhat like it, just to show you how she actually holds the guns. Yeah, she does have these sort of trigger fingers in both hands. It looks like the sculpting's a little bit different on both as well. This one's got more of a wide grasp, this one's got a sort of closer grasp. So I imagine that the pistol probably would look better in this hand. kind of does, but I can't quite get... Let's just assume that it does. The one sort of issue is with the sniper rifle, which I believe this hand's probably more designed for. It's not like you can really pose her, sort of getting into a sort of sniping position, just because between the elbow here and then the fact you only get the rotation sort of limits the amount of posability. I assume you probably can do it, but just won't be that many poses. And then of course, if you do want to holster the weapon, just pop it in. I think I accidentally flipped your belt around though. It's supposed to be like that? Yeah. But it really sticks out for some reason. There it goes. Usually expect more of a holster at the bottom, but hey, whatever. So yeah, pretty decent looking figure. You know, definitely one of the ones I was more looking forward to this wave. Of course, the one that I'm most looking forward to is the Dark Wolverine, which I still have yet to see. But I'll pick him up eventually. This has been a look at Madame Masque from the, I guess, Madames of Marvel pack from Wave 2 of the rebooted Marvel Legends line. Until next time, folks. Final note, just wanted to point out the fact that because of the sort of ball and socket elbows here, it does make it easier to sort of, I guess, fold the character's arms and stuff, which, you know, is kind of a cool pose. Thought I'd point it out just because.